To extract 1 gram of gold, you have to extract 1 ton of rock. So you can imagine the environmental impact that obviously has on the mining landscape. We extract 10 grams of gold from 1 ton of IT equipment.
Une tonne de cartes intégrées.
BNP Paribas Personal Finance invites you to discover On the Way, the podcast that explores the paths to responsible consumption. Whether entrepreneur, people from the world of business, or researchers, On the Way gives a voice to those who day after day are helping to develop more sustainable consumption. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy listening.
Bonjour On the Way, je suis Agathe Gauthier.
Hello On the Way, my name's Agathe Gauthier. I'm the co-founder and the artistic director of the circular jewelry house Emblème. So I started out my professional career at a business school where I met my current partner, Laurent. Then I went to a graphic design and drawing school to satisfy my creative side that had been there in the background, but that I hadn't been able to satisfy with my business studies. So during my studies, I was lucky enough to get a very, very nice internship at Chanel. And that's where I discovered the world of luxury. And I started to develop my taste for it. I realized that the demanding codes of the luxury sector really resonated with me, as I have a demanding side myself. And I'm also extremely sensitive to details, to beauty, to everything that's handmade, and to craftsmanship. And so I found myself in a world that totally suited me. After having a look around, I actually realized that luxury was really the environment where I felt most comfortable. And so I returned to Paris, first to work at Dior on Avenue Montaigne, and then I had this really nice experience in jewelry. So I went to Piaget. And then I ended up working at Giorgio Armani. I was managing 2 flagship stores on Avenue Montaigne. I absolutely adored those years. I felt extremely lucky, and I was extremely well trained. Those brands are extremely demanding, and so I was lucky enough to be trained in sales, customer experience, and products. They explained how everything was made, and we got to visit the workshops. So I was lucky to have had that great opportunity and to work in a really dynamic job. I was working in a team and I was meeting exciting people. It was a job that combined the human aspect with beauty. It was everything I loved. As with lots of people, my ecological awakening was closely related to having my children, but also to a pretty radical change in my life. I went to live in Africa and, more specifically, in the Congo. And so I went from a classic Parisian life, being a consumer, living in the middle of Paris, working in the luxury sector, to living a village life out in nature where the only products were utilitarian. So there you go, no more 100 different brands of yogurt at the supermarket. I started making my own yogurt. And I also realized where I was, the simple act of throwing things away was heretical. People don't throw things away there because they don't have access to the number of consumer products we have in Europe. Everything's reused as there's no longer that abundance of products. You're not urged to consume as much as in Europe. It was really a sort of detox from the consumer society, which was pretty brutal, but little by little, I ended up getting used to it. I lived there for 5 years, and I realized that, in fact, it gave me enormous freedom. And most importantly, I realized that it was an incredible chance to have my children grow up completely disconnected from the consumer society. For them, a weekend walk meant going to the beach, digging holes in the sand, being with their friends and having barbecues with friends. We didn't have any extended family. Being so far away. So our friends became our family. That might sound a bit simple, a bit silly, but we reconnected with the true pleasures of life, which were eating, because when we ate things, they made us really very happy. We reconnected with the basic human pleasure of enjoying good times together. All our plans were based around spending time together, and also nature, because all we had was nature. So we spent lots of time outdoors. And of course, the good climate helped, obviously. So all of our activities were outside and based around nature. And then the second aspect, our second discovery, was that all that nature was being spoiled by our consumption as Europeans. When we went for walks on the beaches, there were some beaches, not all of them just yet, fortunately, but on certain beaches, we were walking on plastic waste, on textile waste, which had obviously arrived by sea, and it was heartbreaking. And most of all, it really opened my eyes because living here, we consume and we consume. We're told about the environment, what's happening, but we don't actually see it. So I think that until you see it, it's quite hard to understand the impact of our day-to-day actions on the planet. Of course, things are improving with all the reporting we've now got access to. But over there, we experienced it in the flesh. You were actually walking on waste. It was really a shock, and most of all, It made me understand the impact of our consumption, of our consumer society. You'd see plastic bags hanging from palm trees, things like that. So that's definitely when my ecological awakening really, truly happened. When I got back to France, I had gone through a profound transformation, obviously, and I felt this real need to get in line with my new mentality, with everything I had developed in Africa. So I started thinking about a project that would allow me to combine my experience in luxury, everything I knew how to do, everything I'd seen, everything I'd learned, which I still loved. Because in a way, luxury means rarity. It's about caring about things. It's actually the opposite of the excesses of consumer society. And I wanted to combine that with what I want for our future, which is reusing our existing resources.
Ce que je souhaite pour notre siècle, c'est la réutilisation des ressources existantes. Le projet Emblème est né en 2022, après mon retour du Congo.
The Emblème project started out in 2022. After coming back from the Congo, I reconnected with Laurent Bertuel, my friend from business school, who had set up a computer refurbishment company in 2006 called Printer. At that time, he just discovered a process for extracting gold from obsolete electronics. And he wanted to start a jewelry brand based on that process. So when I heard him say that, it all added up. It added up on various levels, and I said, listen, this is a fantastic way of making the circular economy attractive. Let's talk about this. And I'm totally ready to go for it. And so that's when we decided to join forces and set up Emblème. To give you an idea about Printer, Printer collects about 1,000 tons of IT equipment every year. And out of those 1,000 tons, about half of it is ink cartridges, which are completely recycled and resold. So that's refurbishment. The other 50% are computers and other IT equipments. There are lots of printers too. The computers are separated into components, and each component is sent to a recycling circuit dedicated to it. Processors go to one, computer cables go to another. Right from the start, Laurent has always been looking to go farther and farther in the value chain. He's got a real engineering skill set. I'm very creative, but he's very much an engineer. He loves to understand how things work, how to recycle more, how to go farther. And so he knew that there were rare and precious metals in electronics. He'd been looking for a long time, for 4 years, for a technique for extracting that gold and reusing it. He had that experience in the world of recycling, and I had the knowledge, the sensitivity, and the love for the world of luxury and French savoir-faire, and particularly in jewelry. So we realized that we completely complemented each other. We had everything we needed to get together and turn the project into reality.
On a tout pour s'associer et mener ce projet à bien. Donc là, tout s'est enchaîné. On a longuement travaillé.
That's how everything came together. We spent a long time working together on developing the design of the jewelry. I was heavily inspired by the world of electronics. In fact, when I was getting started, Laurent showed me around the Printer factory. So I was able to see the tons of electronics he was taking in. I was able to take a close look, touch the processors, the motherboards, the RAM sticks. It was funny, as it wasn't at all my sort of world. And when you think about it, a RAM stick isn't exactly sexy. It's not really what dreams are made of. But when you look at them closely, there's all that gold that people ignore. And in fact, I realized there was a highly graphic side to it. There were a lot of dots and lines, and it made me think of the Morse code. That was where the idea of inscribing the word love and the word eternal on all our jewelry pieces in Morse code came from. So when people see our jewelry, they don't immediately see that there's a secret message. But in fact, it's a message that remains personal. It can be a message to yourself, or that you send to the person you love when you gift them with a piece of jewelry. So I developed a slim ring model, a wider ring model, as I always liked the highly playful side of accessories. And I wanted people to be able to wear our rings. I wanted people to collect them. So in fact, when you wear a thin ring, and then you also wear a wider ring, you create a new ring. And all of our rings also come in different colors. We've been working with jewelry lacquers. It was a deliberate choice, as every time I create something, I try to make sure that it's in line with my values. And so it's eco-designed right from the start. The entire life cycle of jewelry is extremely meticulous and involves the human touch at every stage. We start by collecting and sorting IT equipment. I'd like to point out that all of this is done by disabled people. Printer is a specially adapted company, so 60% of its employees are disabled. And it's an incredible opportunity for us as well as for them. They're extremely meticulous and patient people who spend an enormous amount of time opening up and sorting each element. So first, the processors are sorted, and everything with connections containing gold. So we collect all those components. And then there's a machine that we developed in-house that allows us to extract the gold ourselves. The electronic components are soaked and the gold is dissolved. Then it's held in suspension. Next, via electrolysis, the gold is collected on a rod, and that rod holds the gold, which is then sent to the refiner. Because the gold that we recover is pure, it's 24-karat gold. So it's exactly the same quality gold as the gold that comes from a mine. The difference is that it's much more highly concentrated, but it needs to be purified as there might still be remnants of other metals. It is this gold that is then used by the smelter. The smelter makes the alloy because in France you don't work with 24-karat gold in jewelry. You have to make an alloy with silver and copper. All that makes it a little less malleable because one of the particularities of gold is that it's extremely malleable. And then we work with family workshops, which are extraordinary. When they made the first ring for us, I was stunned by its quality. These are French workshops, I'm very proud to say. They make really good jewelry. And at the workshops, there are various steps. So there's the mold caster who creates the piece. We use the ancient technique of lost wax casting. So there's a plaster mold that they pour the gold into. The piece comes out completely matte. It looks really rough-hewn. And that's where all the expertise of the artisan jeweler allows us to make the piece shine. They spend hours polishing it. Various polishing steps make the gold shine and reveal all of its beauty. Then the piece is engraved. After that, the lacquer artist delicately applies the jewelry lacquer. It's an extremely meticulous task as the border between the lines and the dots and the edges of the ring, you can see the models on the emblème.fr page, is extremely fine. So applying the color is an extremely meticulous job, which is done in various stages. And then there's a second polishing stage. So it's extremely meticulous and extremely human-based work.
C'est un travail extrêmement minutieux et extrêmement humain. Quand on va aller chercher de l'or dans la nature, pour extraire
To extract 1 gram of gold, you have to extract 1 ton of rock. So you can imagine the environmental impact that obviously has on the mining landscape, with all the chemical products that are needed to extract it, of course. That's because, in fact, gold is found in minute quantities. It's gold dust found in rocks, so it's extremely difficult to extract it. Even a very small quantity of gold has a very high environmental footprint. We extract 10 grams of gold from 1 ton of IT equipment. That figure might seem crazy, but it comes from the Environmental Agency. That's on an average, of course. In France, every person throws away 17 to 24 kilograms of IT equipment per year. That seems huge, but again, that's on average. You need to remember all those major companies that renew their IT equipment, certain people who love to consume and have new things, and who regularly replace their computer equipment. And these days, in our homes, there's not just one phone, there are several computers, tablets, and so on. So there's everything we need to extract that gold, which is gold that's the same quality as mine gold. It's exactly the same, except that it's already had a first life. And more importantly, that gold is sourced just 1 hour away from Paris. The whole point is having a short supply chain model. We can extract our gold 1 hour away from Paris and produce the jewelry all very locally and within a very short circuit. And we're constantly striving to go even farther in our circular strategy. When we needed to create the packaging for our jewelry, pieces of jewelry are precious objects that need to be presented in a case to protect them. I found cases sourced from China, as well as very beautiful cases made in France, handmade, but with new materials. So I realized that didn't make much sense to have a new packaging for Emblème jewelry pieces, which are totally circular. So I asked myself, what other quality material can I find that we could use to make an object that would also last, like our jewelry, and which would have the same story? I remembered that in Laurent's factory, there are bags full of pieces of plastic from computers, and I also remembered seeing a French company called Le Pavé that makes recycled plastic panels by compressing them. They're heated and compressed, and the resulting panels have a very mineral-like appearance. They look like marble or quartz. It's very beautiful, it's very luxurious. They feel extremely smooth, and I was certain that we could create a superb object, a design object that people would want to keep, and which would be extremely disruptive in terms of the jewelry sector. As anyway, we might as well be disruptive from start to finish. And so we created our own cases. We found a craftsman who works with these panels, and the silk we use is sourced from offcuts of fabric from major fashion houses. We're lucky right now to have access to that kind of stock. And so the interior of our cases are constantly evolving according to the offcuts of fabric we receive. So next, we set up a pre-order campaign on Ulule.
Organiser une campagne de précommande sur Ulule. Alors Ulule, c'est une plateforme en ligne.
Ulule is an online platform that lets you run crowdfunding campaigns. It's a platform where you present your project, something that the Ulule community is accustomed to. So it encourages new startup projects and buys products that don't yet exist. So I was very, very nervous about doing that, as it's a rather particular project. It's a project that produces luxury jewelry, as it's made of gold, so by definition, we're positioned in luxury, which isn't something very common on Ulule. I was very, very nervous, but it was a great success. And in fact, that was our proof of concept. It was the first time we'd offered our jewelry for pre-order. We got 30 orders in 1 month. So that was extremely positive for a jewelry brand that was very new and just starting out. We were even more happy with our success as it opened up a lot of doors for us. Ulule actually has lots of partnerships with major companies such as Veolia, BNP Paribas, and many others. And they give you the chance to enter competitions that bring you visibility if you win, for example. And that's what happened to us. We were chosen from 15 environmentally impactful brands to have a stand at the Who's Next trade show in Paris. So that was a golden opportunity. We had our first stand at a trade show, which was paid for by Ulule, thanks to the fact that our campaign had worked so well. Today, we're still being disruptive. You can find our jewelry on our Emblème.fr website. The majority of our jewelry is available to order. We offer our customers meetings at the most beautiful luxury hotels in Paris. And these meetings give them a really different experience. They take them out of their day-to-day lives. They're a special moment, a little enchanted interlude, where they meet me and where they're able to try on the jewelry pieces, find the best ring size, choose the best color, and think about compositions with different colors. So it's a really special experience. And now our customers can make an appointment on our website and meet us like that, and experience our jewelry in that way. Because jewelry is special, it's very different from buying a garment. Purchasing jewelry is something extremely thoughtful, something emotionally charged. You plan it, you think about it, you look around, you try it on. It's the opposite of impulse buying. That's why I think the customer experience is extremely important. So for each and every piece of jewelry, there's a waiting time due to the way we create our jewelry. That time is 6 weeks. I think that expectation also contributes to the customer experience. It's part of the pleasure, that process of having thought about what was the best piece of jewelry for that occasion, that waiting period. I like to provide updates from time to time. I send a short message to my customers explaining where we're up to. I think that's also part of the pleasure. It lets you reconnect with the pleasure of bringing a new object into your life. And I think that's really important. Actually, I talk about it a lot. And I'm a great advocate for it. When people have too much of everything, you lose the pleasure of having really chosen an object with your heart. Because you really love it. Of having really thought about it and enjoying being really happy with it. Something that really has meaning and there's a real story behind that object that you've bought into your life. Because in the end, you're much happier with objects that you've truly chosen and thought about, that you really like, rather than having several things without having really thought about them.
Sans y avoir vraiment réfléchi. Alors aujourd'hui, le marché de la joaillerie commence...
So currently, the jewelry market is starting to see more and more players who are interested in the environmental footprint of their creations. Historically, the jewelry sector has always used recycled gold. Not in sufficient quantities, but as gold is infinitely recyclable, it's something that's always been done. Obviously, there are some extremely interesting innovations that I'm focusing on and thinking about a lot. Of course, there are synthetic diamonds. Since the 1950s, people have been able to make synthetic diamonds. And as it often happens, it was in response to industrial requirements. And it was taken up by the world of jewelry. Then there's the question of the energy needed to produce those diamonds. There are also some very interesting ideas around secondhand. So there you go, this is just the beginning. When I talk to my customers, I see there's a real interest. Our customers want to know the story behind the jewelry, as they're objects that they'll carry close to them, and that they'll normally keep all their lives, and ideally, pass them on. The story behind a piece of jewelry and how it was made is extremely important to me. In my wildest dreams, Emblème is sold at Le Bon Marché, in the most beautiful concept stores in Paris, and most of all, abroad. Because the message that we're sending through Emblème, I want to send to as many people as possible, and to get as many people as possible interested in the circular economy through jewelry. We also plan to extract other precious metals that are found in electronics, because there is more than just gold in them. There's also platinum, which is an excellent conductor, as well as silver. So that's something I'd really like to work with in my collections, combining gold and silver. We're not able to do that just yet, and we're currently looking for a way to extract those metals.
La façon d'extraire ces métaux-là. Alors si j'avais un conseil à donner, j'aime pas...
So if I had any advice to give, well, I don't really like giving advice, as I think you have to be very, very humble and nobody's perfect. That said, just because we're all imperfect doesn't mean we can't be open to new ways of doing things, and that we can't be open to constantly improving. And it's true that the detox I experienced in Africa allowed me to reconnect with the pleasure of choosing each object that enters into my life. And I realized that happiness doesn't come from accumulating things or possessing lots of objects. Accumulating things doesn't bring you happiness. We're hearing that more and more often, but it's still so true. It seems rather simplistic, but it's so true. It's all about spending time outside, in nature, with your family, with your friends. It's about laughing. That's what's important. And that's what makes you happy. And people are made so that we're attracted by beauty and by creation. So we'll always end up choosing objects and bringing them into our lives. And today, that's the perfect opportunity to carefully choose each object that we bring into our lives, and to know why we choose them, to be interested in their story, who made them, and to ask yourself the question, do I truly love this? Will I love it for a long time? Will it go well with what I already wear? That's also a good question to ask yourself. So there you go. So if I had to give, well, it's not an advice, but I think it's really very, very lovely to realize. It really feels good to realize that we feel better when we have fewer things. And it's a lovely discovery. So I invite you to discover that feeling.
Et c'est une belle découverte. Donc je vous invite à découvrir ce sentiment-là.
You can find all the episodes of On the Way on your favorite podcast platforms and on the personal-finance.bnp Paribas website. Any links or references made by guests can be found in the introductory text of each episode. And if you'd like to take to our microphone and tell us your story, please contact nicolas.meunier@bnpparibas.com. See you very soon!